The saga begins in the depths of a hellish dungeon, where darkness reigns supreme. Here, young Raion hangs in chains, enduring a symphony of agony, but his tormentor isn't extracting information. He is purely savoring the pain. Blood paints the stone floor crimson, dripping from a body broken beyond recognition. Every inch of his flesh screams in protest. The architect of this nightmare is Lord Sans Parton, the monster who extinguished the prestigious Sermon bloodline. Fate is a cruel mistress. While every member of the Sermon clan inherits godlike power, the youngest prince was born an empty vessel. He inherited absolutely nothing from his predecessors. As Sans spits vile curses at the cockroach that refuses to perish, Raion attempts to beg for the sweet release of death. But only a gurgle escapes his throat. The realization strikes cold. The white-haired devil tore out his tongue long ago. His pleas fall on deaf ears, lost in the silence of the abyss. Bored with his toy, the Lord finally departs, marking the third anniversary of the Sermon family's annihilation. Left in the suffocating silence, Raion recalls the glory days. His house was the shield of humanity, the iron wall against the Dark Zone. 3 years ago, they stood tall. The Dark Zone was a mysterious hellscape that endlessly vomited monsters into the world. Because of that sacred duty, the Sermon family was hailed as the apex of the 5 noble pillars on the continent. But their fall was swift. One day, the patriarch and his heirs vanished into thin air, leaving no trace behind. That disappearance triggered a catastrophe. It was the crack in the dam that allowed their enemies to flood in. Lord Sans Parton, like a vulture spotting a dying beast, struck immediately. He employed every shadow tactic imaginable to drag the family into the mud. Yet, his greed had a specific target: the Sermon family's dragon blood, a divine blessing granted only to true descendants. It acts as a catalyst for limitless potential. It allows them to become 7th Circle archmages in childhood and swordmasters by the tender age of 15. However, the former Demon Lord Archon's ancient curse can nullify that blessing, a tragedy that strikes only one child every few centuries. And Raion was the chosen vessel of misfortune. Denied the path of the sword or the weave of magic, he was powerless. He could only watch in tearful impotence as the Partons razed his home. Now, sitting alone in the dark, he weeps for the weakness that allowed monsters to destroy everything he loved. To make matters worse, the Psycho Lord spent 3 long years dissecting him like a lab rat. Now, drained of rage and will, he is simply exhausted. Sensing the Grim Reaper's embrace, he closes his eyes, welcoming the eternal void. But destiny refuses to let him sleep. Raion's eyes snap open, not to hellfire, but to sunlight. A familiar voice calls out, "Young master?" The sound shatters his confusion. It is Colin, his loyal maid and caretaker, standing there alive and breathing. As the fog lifts from his mind, urgency grips him. He demands a mirror immediately. The reflection stares back not a broken prisoner, but a boy. When Colin confirms the date, the world tilts. Raion feels the earth shift beneath his feet. He has somehow returned to his 12th year. This isn't just a random date. It is the precipice of ruin, the very year the Parton serpents began their encroachment. Suddenly, a memory flashes. The Golden Lord's cryptic promise to grant a dying wish. The puzzle pieces snap into place. The door opens, admitting a man with the presence of a mountain. Colin bows instantly before the aura of authority. Raion recognizes him instantly. Alejandro, the legendary knight commander. The warrior insists the prince must rest. Seeing his frail state, Colin quickly backs him up, citing the young master's delicate constitution. But the boy who survived hell is no longer fragile. Raion declares himself in peak condition, his voice steady as steel. He demands to know the training schedule. Alejandro is floored. The prince usually invents any excuse to escape practice. The commander reveals today is merely footwork training, wondering if this intense child is truly the lazy prince he knows. Raion grips the training blade with a predator's intent. "I am Raion Sermon," he declares, a confident smirk playing on his lips. The torment of the dungeon has forged his mind into a weapon. He is fully prepared. He will crush whatever challenges arise. This is his second chance to rewrite history, and he will settle the score with the pale Parton parasite in blood. Opening his system interface, relief washes over him. His stats are salvageable. And there, hiding in the corner, is his curse marked with a terrifying double S rank. Alejandro signals that preparations are complete. Raion closes the status window and follows him to the arena. At the center, a goblin thrashes against its bindings, screeching like a demon from the abyss. The beast lunges, chains snap taut just inches from Raion's face. The killing intent in the air is suffocating. Terrified, Colin begs the Knight Commander to stop this madness, fearing the young master will be torn apart. Raion finally grasped her intentions. He had been paralyzed by fear yesterday, but today he forced his resolve to harden. He knew exactly what had to be done. even as the system flashed red warnings that the Curse of Arcan was activating. It was the same sinister debuff that turned low-level mobs into sources of paralyzing terror. Glancing at his status window, he finally understood the true nature of his affliction. Alejandro noticed his tension and suggested they call it a day, but Raion refused to back down, declaring he was far from finished. The moment he stepped forward, the goblin lunged with killing intent. The sudden attack caught him off guard, and his body instinctively slid back in panic before he slammed the brakes on his own fear. He mentally screamed at himself to get a grip. It was just one foul-smelling piece of trash, not a demon lord. A grin tugged at his lips as he realized something crucial. This goblin's pressure was a joke compared to the entity he met in the prologue. Back in Adian, that presence alone had frozen his very soul. Compared to that nightmare, this weak creature didn't even qualify as a warm-up. With newfound conviction, he raised his blade high and brought it down. A clean, satisfying impact echoed through the training hall. The Knight Commander and Colin stood with their jaws on the floor. The system chimed with a glorious notification. He had successfully resisted the curse's influence. Raion stared at the cracked practice sword and the trembling monster at his feet. A new window popped up. The status effect, Fear of Monsters, had been nullified. He stood there, processing the victory. After a brief moment of contemplation, he turned to Alejandro with cold eyes and ordered him to bring a real steel blade. The Knight Commander hesitated, stunned, while Colin looked ready to faint from the intensity. Raion shot the old veteran a confident smirk. That expression sent a shiver through the old knight. The fragile young master was gone, replaced by the aura of a true predator. The goblin began to violently shiver the moment their eyes met, as if its instincts screamed that death had arrived. Raion swung without a shred of mercy. One strike, one kill. He ended the beast's suffering in an instant. Alejandro whispered to his subordinate to pay close attention. They were witnessing the awakening of the future head of House Sermain. After the battle, Raion retreated to the washroom, splashing cold water on his face to cool his adrenaline. He stared at his reflection, overwhelmed with relief that the system was actually helping him shatter his cursed chains. He slammed his hands on the sink, hyping himself up. There was limitless room to grow, and dormant potential waiting to be unleashed. However, his mood plummeted the moment he checked the rewards. The experience points were absolute trash. At this grinding rate, he would need to unalive millions of goblins just to reach a decent level. He needed to gain power exponentially before the day of destruction crashed down upon his family. But at least he confirmed the curse wasn't absolute. Staring at the blue screen, he vowed not to waste this second chance at life, no matter the cost. Shifting into lore mode, he recalled that House Sermain was currently teetering on the brink of ruin. With his father and siblings missing for over 2 years, the family was vulnerable. Even in his weakened state, Raion held the keys to the kingdom, keeping enemies at bay for now. Suddenly, he punched the air in sheer excitement. He had finally found a viable leveling path. With physical training settled, he decided to pivot. It was time to initiate method number 2. The scene shifted to a breathtaking beauty in crimson robes. As she glided through the doors, they sat for tea. She mentioned rumors of his monster hunt, smiling cryptically before asking if he had summoned her for magic lessons. This was Sina, the leader of House Sermain's magic division. Just like the Knight Commander, she was a 7th-rank powerhouse with terrifying capability. Her background was a complete mystery to everyone but the family head. She set her cup down, her aura shifting to serious. She warned him not to let a single goblin kill inflate his ego. Magic was an entirely different dimension. She had never trained him before for a reason. She had judged him to have 0 magical aptitude. Raion smirked. He knew that was true. The curse had blocked his mana circuits completely. But that was the old Raion. Yesterday changed everything. He fired back with unwavering confidence. I can feel the mana now. The revelation hit her like a physical blow, leaving the mage visibly shaken. Sina decided to test this bold claim instantly. She wove a complex construct of a fire dragon using invisible mana. She told him to focus and try to perceive the shape she drew, but before she could even finish her sentence, he described the dragon perfectly without a second of hesitation. Sina was left completely speechless. It defied all logic. How could he awaken such acute mana sensitivity overnight? The fact that he could see her construct meant his perception was already rivaling hers. She began pacing, deeply, deeply unsettled. How did the young master achieve such a legendary breakthrough so fast? Then, Raion spoke up. He confesses the cruel truth to her. His divine eyes can see the flow of mana clearly, but that is the limit of his talent. The prestigious cultivation techniques of the Sermon family are beyond his reach. He begs her to help him shatter this impossible wall, leaving her stunned by his request. Since his cursed body rejects natural mana, Sina must take a drastic measure. She must forcibly drive her own magical power directly into his core. Her expression darkens with worry. She warns him that one slip-up during this volatile process could end his life in an instant. But the prince simply scoffs at death. He is already so frail that a stiff breeze could kill him, so the risk implies nothing to him. Yet, the truth lies deeper in his heart. In this entire treacherous world, she is the sole soul he trusts with his existence. In the blood-soaked memories of the previous timeline, Sina was his final shield. She stood by him until the bitter end, using her own flesh to block the blows. Even after her mana ran dry, she fought on. He looks at her now, pleading for her aid once more, knowing there is no one else. There is no other guardian he would dare entrust his fate to. Resigned to his will, Sina prepares to unleash the Blue Earth art. It is the supreme secret technique, the pride of the Sermon bloodline, preserved through centuries of history. She hesitates, fearing his body is too fragile. But she doesn't know that our boy has already walked through the fires of hell in the Aeon dimension. Stealing her resolve, she commands him to focus. He stands at the precipice of a world of pure, unadulterated agony. She warns him that screaming will not save him. Once the ritual begins, the only escape is to command the flow to stop with his very will. He must reject the pain with his soul. Yet, her warnings only trigger dark flashes of the madness he endured in his past life. The torture inflicted by Sans was a horror beyond words. After surviving that abyss, nothing in this mortal realm can shake his resolve. With eyes full of absolute conviction, he reminds Senna of his faith in her. It is time to stop holding back the flood. She finally unleashes her full power. The torrent of mana strikes him, and Arkan's curse reacts instantly, purging the energy as fast as it enters. But he is no amateur. Like a grandmaster, he seizes control of the chaotic energy in the split second it resides within him. The curse tries to expel the power, but he forcibly compresses the exploding mana into a single point. He has found a loophole in the curse itself. Sina watches in disbelief. The raging river of mana she is pouring into him has vanished, absorbed completely without a single drop leaked. Inside, Raion is screaming. Every mana vessel in his body swells to the breaking point, threatening to detonate from the pressure. Yet he does not falter. This pain is a familiar friend compared to the countless death matches he survived in the past. In that nightmare dimension of Aeon, he ascended to become the strongest human mage in history. Even with time rewound, his soul remembers. Every technique, every battle instinct, is etched into his very spirit. Suddenly, he makes his move. He devours the concentrated energy, fusing it into his core. Sina cuts the flow instantly, and Raion collapses to the cold stone floor. His body curls tight, trembling from the backlash, but he grits his teeth. This agony is a mercy compared to his previous life. The human experimentation. The cold scalpels of Sansa's doctors. Those memories are the true definition of hell. He remembers that fateful night. A shadow in black robes shattered the laboratory doors and cut down the mad doctors like wheat. Bleeding and broken, the masked savior dragged him from the abyss. When Raion finally opened his eyes in safety, he realized his savior was Alejandro. The commander wept, apologizing for being too late to stop the white-coated monsters from destroying him. Raion felt only gratitude. After 3 years of isolation, seeing a familiar face was a miracle, but destiny is cruel. The Parton family guards ambushed them. He watched in horror as a rain of arrows pierced his savior's back, ending their reunion. Raion gasps, snapping back to reality with tears streaming down his face. The experiment succeeded, but the memory stings like acid. He wipes the tears away. Anger burns through his sorrow. He swears upon his life to use this newfound strength. That tragedy will never be repeated. He has power now, but the path of vengeance requires patience and deception. He must remain a shadow. If the Parton family discovers his growth, they will strike before he is ready. He hatches a new scheme. The first move on his chessboard is clear. He will crush the Sermon family's enemies preemptively, long before they can threaten his people. Recovering his composure, Raion scratches his head with a sheepish grin. He announces that the cultivation failed completely. Sena and Alejandro freeze, their faces blank with confusion. The silence in the room is deafening. It hurts him to lie. He has never kept secrets from his loyal retainers, but the weight of the future is his alone to bear. Explaining the anomaly would only put targets on their backs. He flexes his hands and lies, claiming he felt nothing at all. Not a shred of mana remains, he claims. He invites Sena to verify it herself. Anxious, she accepts the challenge. Without wasting a breath, the mage activates her detection spell and seizes his wrist. Her mana searches his core, and her eyes go wide with shock. It is impossible. Meanwhile, Raion maintains his mask of innocence. She pulls away, trembling. She confirms the unbelievable truth. There is not a single trace of mana left in his body. Her voice trembles, desperation clinging to every word. As she insists she felt the surge of mana within him just yesterday. But the depressed and frustrated Sena wipes her tears and retreats. while Raion calls out feebly as the door slams shut. Alejandro pivots, eyes burning with determination for the night training, but our hero just flashes a nervous, innocent smile and hits him with the ultimate lazy card, claiming he is too frail to lift a finger because he barely ate his dinner. A pathetic excuse following the last session, and Colin nods, confirming the absolute lack of nutrition. The words drain the soul right out of the Knight Commander's body, leaving him to crumble into a pit of silent despair. 2 months later, Alan bursts into Raion's room, sobbing that the young master is playing hermit again while the house falls apart. With the lord and his sons gone, the lady is carrying the weight of the world, but even her iron will is beginning to crack. Meanwhile, Colin heads to the kitchen where the gossip is hotter than the stove, servants whispering the brutal truth. They ask if the Prince of Laziness refused to leave his cave again, and the butler sighs, admitting it has been 3 full months. Not since he slew that goblin has he shown his face, now refusing to even answer Alejandro. Another maid chimes in, muttering that those who try to change overnight usually break, and hoping for a miracle from him is a waste of breath. But Colin snaps. She unleashes her fury, defending the young master and insisting he gave everything he had that day. But her fire is extinguished the second they drop his infamous nickname, the bad luck of the Sermon family. The city streets are even crueler, upgrading his title to the useless rubbish of the house, a stain on their honor. Hearing the slander, his loyal maid jumps in to remind the yapping man that the boy is only 12 years old, but the butler cuts deep, stating that for a noble, expectations are absolute, while another maid reveals the rats are fleeing the sinking ship. One by one they quit, and the butler drops the bomb that he too plans to hand in his resignation soon. He asks Colin what her move is, but she remains stoically silent, and the scene shifts to the man of the hour, Raion, who is calmly devouring a medium-rare steak. He notes the meat quality is garbage, a delicious sign that everything is about to collapse. But instead of panicking, he grins like a devil who just won the lottery, realizing chaos is the perfect ladder. The old Raion would have run around like a headless chicken trying to fix things, only to wither away in failure. But the new Raion is built different. His strategy is to lie low, letting every enemy believe he is weak, harmless, prey, and defenseless. Then, the moment they expose their throats, he will strike with zero mercy. He recalls the tragedy. The family's downfall began when the head of house vanished into thin air, and the rescue party never came back. His older brothers disappeared the exact same way. Funding dried up, and the training ground that once roared with life is now a ghost town with a few weak knights. The powerful families who wanted alliances have all ghosted them, quietly abandoning the sinking ship. However, Raion isn't losing sleep over it. In fact, the silence is golden. It allows him to live his double life in peace. Though, he admits he is annoyed at how slowly the family is crashing and burning. He wants to speed up the destruction. Just then, Colin kicks the door down, shouting that training time is now, and the Knight Commander is waiting. Raion's mood instantly tanks, and he whines that he wants to skip today too, but Colin is done playing games. She yanks the covers off and approaches him with the resolve of a Terminator, before scooping him up. A full bridal carry. With a face of steel, she marches out, declaring she will never abandon this family. Meanwhile, our hero just relaxes and enjoys the free taxi ride. Later, at the training grounds, Alejandro is fuming. He chews Raion's ear off for swinging the sword like a wet noodle, preaching that basic strikes are simple. Raion sighs internally, realizing the old man still hasn't given up on him. He wants to repay that loyalty one day, but right now, he cannot let a single soul discover he has been grinding in secret. He even uses a body change skill to mask his true ripped physique, even though the skill is still low level. Suddenly, a chime rings out. The system informs him his stamina has leveled up. His eyes go wide, and he immediately pulls the bathroom card. He dashes off, leaving a confused commander in the dust. Staring at the mirror, he confirms the disguise breaks. The moment he moves at supersonic speeds, Raion pops open his status window and smirks at the beautiful numbers. His hidden grind is finally paying dividends. He figures he will hit level 20 soon and plans to unlock the Ghost class, just like he did back in the Gulag, while min-maxing his other classes. But then, he spots Alejandro talking to a stranger. Wondering if a surprise plot twist has arrived, he recognizes the man as Truno, the general manager of the estate, who apologizes for the interruption. Truno hands over a scroll, and Raion's instincts scream that the game is about to change. Fate remained unchanged, but this time, Alejandro saw right through the charade. As he scanned the royal missive, one name stood out in bold ink: Kyle, the second prince of the Darren Kingdom. A royal birthday invitation? The young master's lips curled into a wicked smirk. The final puzzle piece had just slotted into place. Before long, he was en route to the Darren estate, though our protagonist looked more ready for a nap than a gala. blame Colin for that. She had treated him like her personal dress-up doll all night to ensure he looked impeccably dapper. She begged to join him, but fate had other plans. His strongest shields were stripped away, starting with the Knight Commander. An unexpected monster wave had smashed into the border, forcing the commander to the front lines immediately. Meanwhile, Sena was summoned by an urgent family order, dragging her back home at the worst possible moment. And so, a 12-year-old family head with zero social skills was left to represent the majestic sermon house all by himself. Truno offered empty comforts, claiming the Darren family wouldn't dare pull a stunt in the open. But Raion knew better. That immunity belonged to the sermon family of the past, not the crumbling house of today. Under normal circumstances, a mere retainer would suffice for such a frivolous social gathering. But in their weakened state, the young master had no choice but to attend personally as the official head of house. Not that he minded. The weight of the family's rapid decline still sat heavy on his conscience. A few hours later, the carriage rolled to a halt. Waiting there was none other than Kyle Darren, flanked by an army of maids ready to receive him. Truno bowed in gratitude for the grand reception. But our boy wasn't fooled by the pleasantries. As he walked the reception hall, he felt them hundreds of sharp, judgmental eyes piercing through him like arrows. The air was thick with venomous whispers and mockery regarding the sermon family's pathetic downfall. Yet, our protagonist simply smirked. Let them talk. Every insult was just another variable in his grand calculation. He played the fool perfectly, offering a weak, classless greeting that made the nobles cringe. It was such a pathetic display that everyone within a 1-mile radius collectively face-palmed in sheer disappointment. Later, in the dining quarters, the escorts whispered in shock. The young master hadn't left his room in 5 whole days. They arrived early to build political bridges. But the captain advised his men to bury their expectations 6 feet under. After that catastrophic display at the reception, he couldn't believe the boy was now playing the role of a shut-in, a waste. The banquet tables were groaning under the weight of delicacies worth dying for a paradise for any man, not to mention the dazzling noble ladies. But their fantasies were cut short as a messenger burst in with orders. Gather the men. The young master had finally decided to grace the banquet with his presence. The guards rejoiced. Relieved they wouldn't miss the feast, they prepared to write a glowing report, conveniently sweeping any mistakes under the rug. As for Raion, he hadn't been sulking. He had been quietly honing his skills in the solitude of his chamber. He bided his time, using the banquet as bait to bribe his escorts into falsifying their reports. But his true objective lay elsewhere. Today wasn't just a party. It was the arrival day of the bane of his existence. Lord Sands entered the hall, and the chatter instantly died. The silence was deafening. Nobles scattered like roaches, avoiding eye contact at all costs. Even Truno tried to make himself invisible, but Sands marched straight toward him like a predator. Cornered, Truno resorted to desperate flattery. He babbled about great honor, but Sands cut him off, his voice dripping with venom. I heard the mighty Raion sermon is here. He demanded a meeting. Truno feigned ignorance, sweating bullets under that intense gaze. So Sands spelled it out for him. I'm talking about the sermon family's greatest failure, the mistake that will lead you to ruin. Truno trembled. He knew Sands was the Darren family's genius mage, burdened by immense pressure, but to openly trash-talk a family head in public? That was a declaration of war, especially here, in the Darren domain. Yet, Sands suddenly pulled a twisted psychological reversal. Surely the rumors are fake, he sneered, claiming he only wished to debunk the lies tarnishing the great sermon name. Truno didn't buy a word of it. He was staring at the biggest piece of trash on the entire continent. Rumor had it, Sands started drinking at age 7 and had already bathed his hands in the blood of his own subjects. Just then, the doors swung open. Raion made his grand entrance, and Sands's eyes lit up with predatory glee. Meanwhile, Truno nearly had a heart attack. Why did the young master have to show up at the absolute worst possible second? Raion's aura was blinding, a radiant force that commanded the room. Every noble present was forced to rethink their entire worldview. The crowd was captivated, their doubts washing away in the face of his presence. But for Sands, envy burned in his veins like poison. Our protagonist completely eclipsed him, simply by existing. With the weight of his family's reputation behind him, Raion walked straight up to his rival. He greeted him with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I've heard so many stories about you, Sands, especially from my brother, Prince Lars. Sands smirked, arrogance written all over his face. I've heard much about you too, he began. But before he could spew his venom, Raion cut him off with terrifying praise. You are truly a saint, Sands. I heard you even left the academy early just to spread your kindness elsewhere. He twisted the ugly truth into a beautiful lie, masterfully reversing the roles of hero and villain with a silver tongue. They say you saved a helpless student from bullies, and even defended a lady's honor against a shameless waste of oxygen. Sands was boiling with rage, unable to refute the praise without exposing himself. But Raion wasn't done playing with his prey. He casually glanced down at Sans's knees. Truno sensed the killing intent. He jumped in, desperate to defuse the bomb. Ah! Master Sans merely delivered medicine for Prince Lars's injured knee. He dragged his young master away before the powder keg could explode. Meanwhile, Raion smiled. Mission accomplished. He had absolutely roasted the white-haired noble. To Sans, those twisted compliments were a declaration of total war. But provoking the enemy was only step 2 of the master plan. Alone in his chambers, Sans's mask finally cracked. Crash! A vase shattered against the wall. His temper detonated as he screamed profanities, cursing our hero's very existence. The realization hit him like a cold bucket of water. Lars knows. He knows I didn't drop out voluntarily. He knows I was expelled. Sans clutched his head, trembling. All that bribery, all the pressure to hide his shame, it was all for nothing. The memory of the knee comment replayed in his mind, mocking him. That was the one secret he would kill to keep buried. Suddenly, the nightmare of the past resurfaced in a vivid flashback. The air crackled with lethal energy. Blue lightning danced around Prince Lars. You've really crossed a line this time, noble. In the memory, Sans stammered like a coward. I didn't know she was your partner. I was just trying to greet the commoner. Lars's expression remained frozen, colder than ice. Rank means nothing here. Before anything else, we are all students. Then, the order that crushed Sans's pride dropped. Kneel. Apologize with your soul, Lars warned, eyes glowing with mana. Or I will personally erase House Parton from history and dispose of you myself. Broken by fear, Sans had collapsed to his knees in the dirt. Snapping back to the present, the humiliation burned fresh. He screamed again, tearing at his hair in frustration. I will silence him. That brat Raion must die, no matter the cost. He panted, forcing his erratic heart to slow down. He needed a plan. He needed to focus. I will have my vengeance on Raion. Knock, knock. The sound interrupted his plotting. Enter. The door creaked open. Sans raised an eyebrow, intrigued. This was an unexpected guest. Standing there was none other than Raion's own servant, Truno. Meanwhile, the carriage rattled through the night, carrying our hero home. Raion gazed out the window, tallying his victories. He had charmed the nobility perfectly, achieving every single objective. But the sweetest victory? Shattering Sans's composure in record time. Truno finally broke the silence. Young master, you were magnificent at the banquet. You truly made me feel like there is hope for us yet. Hope? Raion scoffed. I made 0 allies and essentially declared war on House Parton. Is that your definition of hope? The general manager panicked. I meant your speech. The way you dismantled Sans was truly legendary. Raion chuckled darkly. He reached out and pressed a rune in the center of the carriage. Asterisk, click. Asterisk. Truno stiffened. Young master, why did you activate the silence barrier? Raion's eyes turned cold. If you really had hope for me, Truno, Raion's voice dropped to a whisper, you wouldn't have chosen to betray this family. Cold sweat instantly drenched the manager's back. Betray? I don't understand. Cut the act, Raion interrupted. Your crimes are unforgivable. But today, I'm choosing mercy, because I know you did it for House Seonmyeong. The manager slumped, defeated. How? How did you find out? That doesn't matter. You have a choice to make, right now. Judge me yourself. Judge me as you always have. As the carriage raced through the darkness, Raion whispered his true, secret plan. Truno's eyes widened to the size of saucers. He stared at the boy, his mind reeling. Asterisk. Is this truly the young master? Asterisk. The sheer brilliance of it. Truno buried his face in his hands, unable to hold back the tears. I want to scream with pride right now, he sobbed. Raion watched him, a faint smile playing on his lips. Save your tears, Truno. We've already left the capital behind. He stares in disbelief, wondering how a mere child remains so composed in the face of death. But realization strikes like a cold blade. That is no innocent smile, but the gaze of a predator radiating pure bloodlust. Suddenly, the carriage halts with a violent jerk. The escort knight screams for the driver to push forward, but death has already claimed the driver. An arrow barely misses the knight's skull. Ambush! A soldier roars. He bellows for defensive formations, warning the group that poison-tipped magic arrows are raining from the sky. Mages instantly deploy shimmering barriers while the captain deflects the lethal hail with his blade. Show yourselves, cowards, he thunders into the void. But a subordinate senses a disturbing anomaly in the flow of mana. Captain, stay back, he warns, but it is too late. The knight flings the door open only to find the carriage completely empty. While chaos reigns on the battlefield, Raion has already been spirited away, galloping toward a different fate on horseback. As the wind rushes past, Our hero calculates the timeline. Memories of his tragic past life flood his mind. Back then, his abduction forced his family to waste their fortune searching for him, leading to the Sermon clan's total ruin. But fate has granted him a second chance. Armed with knowledge of the future, Raion is rewriting destiny itself. Upon his return, he deliberately played the fool, ensuring his family would not waste resources trying to save a useless son. It was a calculated gamble to convince the vultures he was worthless. However, the enemy is different this time. The Parton family culls the strong and spares the weak. He knew they would eventually come for his head. And now, Sans Parton, the arrogant heir, has walked right into the predator's maw. Every step of this abduction is dancing to our hero's tune. He was prepared for this exact moment. Even Truno, the man sent to capture him, is merely a pawn on Raion's chessboard. Slumped behind the traitor, Raion whispers a final command to stick to the script, promising mercy if he complies. All the while, the system hums in the background. His relentless grinding has finally pushed him to level 20. They arrive at the rendezvous point. Truno presents the feigned unconscious body of our boy to the enemy heir, Sans Parton. In truth, Truno is the Sermon family's head manager, pushed to betrayal for the sake of the clan's survival. He trades his young master to the wolves, believing Sans Parton is an honorable ally in this dark deal. The exchange begins. Sans hands over the coveted intelligence, claiming it was sourced from the Asin family's spy network. He assures Truno of its authenticity. Seeing the manager's hesitation, Sans plays the noble card. We may be rivals on the Drea continent. He lies smoothly, but information is merely commerce to us. He hands over the dossier, stating that selling secrets is their true trade. The documents allegedly contain the location of the Sermon family's lost direct descendants. Raion listens, finally understanding the betrayal. Truno sold him out because he viewed Raion as a hopeless stain on the family name. He believes only the elder brothers have the strength to restore the Sermon glory, so he would sacrifice anything to find them. Desperate for that information, Truno made a deal with the devil, bypassing the impossible Asin barriers. He used the Parton family as a stepping stone. As he turns to leave, Truno begs for one final condition. Please, return the young master safely once you are done. A naive plea to a snake. As Truno fades into the distance, a servant asks for permission to execute the boy. Not yet, Sans sneers. Let his family abandon him first. Let him become the villain of his own story. With the master plan set in motion, Sans departs. The scene shifts to the damp darkness of a dungeon where our hero wakes in chains. Sans Parton looms over him, dripping with arrogance, mocking the fallen son of the Sermon house. Raion plays the fool one last time, feigning ignorance. Why am I here? He whimpers. But as Sans gloats about the kidnapping, a cold edge enters Raion's voice. You have no idea what you have started. Sans laughs, dismissing the threat as the ramblings of a loser, and delivers a brutal kick to Raion's face. Your father and brothers are likely dead by now. Sans spits, twisting the knife deeper. He reveals the cruel truth that Truno sold him like livestock, just to find his better siblings. No one came for you, Raion. No one cares for a piece of trash like you. Consider this the opening move, Sans declares. The war between our families has only just begun, but the trembling stops. Raion looks up, eyes burning with eldritch light as he activates the magic circle, wiping the smile off Sans's face forever. Still bound by cold iron, Raion declared that he had waited an eternity for this very moment since his return from death. Emerald mana flooded the chamber, yet nothing changed. Sans, in his arrogance, sneered at our hero's apparent failure. But this was no failure. Raion unleashed a circle of absolute silence, sealing Sans's voice within his own throat. Robbed of his incantations, his spells crumbled into dust. Shock turned to primal terror in an instant. Desperate, he launched a silent firebolt. He knew the family head wanted Raion alive, but panic had taken the wheel. He resorted to second circle magic to maim rather than kill. But Raion had predicted this cowardly move long ago. Sans aimed for the legs, reasoning that his father wouldn't care if the captive was crippled, as long as he breathed. Raion analyzed the flow, then triggered mana interference, a perfect counter to disrupt the enemy's rhythm. Sans's magic dissipated uselessly. Panicked, he drew a dagger, lunging with murderous intent. Raion shattered the chains like glass. Before the blade could land, he cast a paralysis spell with a mere thought. Sans collapsed into darkness. When his eyes fluttered open, the tables had turned. Now, *key times, was the prisoner. Raion sat before him, blade in hand, watching cold and impassive. Sans scoffed, thinking these were mere ordinary bindings. He pulled with all his might, only to be blasted by agonizing voltage, his body convulsed in pure torment. Raion stepped closer, revealing the truth. He had carved magic circles directly into Sans's skin, a forbidden art. The ink was flesh and blood. In his previous life, Raion had suffered this exact hellish torture. Forced awake by magic, denied the mercy of sleep, he had been made to endure eternity in agony. Scars were etched into his very soul. Sans trembled, unable to comprehend how a novice knew such dark techniques. To the world, Raion was monoless. But in the shadows, since his rebirth, he had been honing his craft. Guided by memories of his past life and aided by mana pills 3 months ago, his growth was explosive. He mastered every skill available. But his true weapon was the secret wisdom of Adion. Every skill followed a specific circuit. Mana wasn't just energy. It had to flow through unique pathways in the soul. It was a truth known only to the supreme masters of the era. A truth Raion wielded with deadly precision. With this divine knowledge, his second life became a path of conquest rather than struggle. Moreover, Raion had scouted this dungeon before, memorizing every shadow and stone of its structure. Capturing Sans was child's play. The torture circle was meant for Raion, but destiny loves irony. Now, Sans would taste the true meaning of despair. The screams that followed were music to a logical mind. Raion turned to leave. Desperate, Sans cried out, warning that his family would arrive to slaughter him. They arrive in 1 week, Raion stated calmly. Sans froze. How could he possibly know the schedule? I heard your commands, Raion replied, cold as ice. Nothing escaped our protagonist's senses, Sans stammered, lying through his teeth that reinforcements would burst in at any second. Raion saw right through the bluff. If they were close, Sans would try to stall him, not scare him away. He was trying to buy survival, but his lies were clumsy. Sans begged, his pride completely shattered. Raion walked away into the darkness, promising to return. He had 1 week to prepare a welcome for the Parton family. 7 days bled by. Right on schedule, the Parton subordinates gathered at the dungeon entrance. The aura was ominous. The leader demanded a status report. Had anyone heard from the young master? Silence, sir, a scout reported. But we've watched the perimeter. No one has entered or left. The leader stepped forward. His orders from the head were absolute. Retrieve the runaway, Raion, immediately. He ordered his men to hold position and descended into the gloom alone. A fatal mistake. The air felt wrong. The moment his boot touched the floor, a magic circle flared to life beneath him. He summoned a barrier instantly. But the ambush confirmed his worst fears. The young master was compromised. Traps littered the corridor like landmines. Who could have orchestrated such a complex defense? Layering a double barrier, he charged through the magical storm, bursting into the containment room. The sight was ghastly. Sans hung in chains, the stone floor beneath him stained dark with dried blood. Who did this? The leader roared. Sans could only wheeze, but in the shadows, Raion was waiting. Raion sat in the corner, bound by rope, playing the perfect victim. The leader ignored Sans's pleas. Escape was the only option now. The enemy sensed the killing intent in the air, but remained blind to the mastermind lurking in the shadows. Confusion clouded the mage's mind, as he wondered why the sermon boy was spared, while Sans lay broken and defeated. A fatal miscalculation. Sans gasped for air, his trembling finger pointing not at a savior, but accusing Raion's sermon of the crime. Meanwhile, our cunning protagonist lay dormant in the corner, feigning unconsciousness as mana gathered for a strike. But it was a trap. The real Raion materialized from the void, shattering the illusion decoy instantly and launching a surprise attack. He challenged the mage head-on. Aura clashed against magic in a violent explosion of power as the battle began. The Divian experience was brutal. A mana-infused fist connected, sending our hero reeling as blood sprayed across the floor. He collapsed, helpless. The mage sneered, declaring that while death was forbidden, suffering was not. He promised torture equal to hell itself. But suddenly, Sans's body moved. A dagger flashed, burying itself deep in the mage's neck. A shocking twist. Raion had hijacked Sans's vessel, using the forbidden soul transfer technique. A dual existence. Not only could he command the host, but he still controlled his original vessel. This was his ultimate trump card. The archmage crumbled into dust. Victory secured. Our hero wasted no time, dousing his wounds in a high-grade healing potion. A triumphant smirk formed on his lips. He had achieved the impossible, slaying a high-ranking powerhouse of the Parton family. The system responded immediately. Golden text flashed before his eyes. Level has increased to 15. The quest completion rewarded him generously. Yet, despite the confusion over the rapid growth, there was no time to celebrate. Priorities first. He dragged the archmage's corpse into the secluded chamber, laying it upon the wooden altar. Death did not sever the mana circuit immediately. The soul still lingered, a battery waiting to be drained. By siphoning this residual mana, while inhabiting Sans's body, our protagonist began the dangerous process of forceful de-leveling. He needed to meet the strict criteria for the assassin's hidden class, the Shadow. Success flashed before him, but he wasn't done. 2 attempts remained. He pushed his luck further, and the goddess of fortune smiled upon him a second time. Most would stop here, but Rayon's ambition knew no bounds. He aimed for a third advancement, defying all logic. He sought the legendary, hidden job, Ghost, the very power that crowned Adion as the strongest existence in history. Confidence surged through his veins. However, the requirement was the sheer size of one's soul, a deadly gamble. Raion did not hesitate. Ignoring the danger, he initiated the third advancement sequence immediately. His soul screamed in agony as he offered his very essence. He teetered on the brink of oblivion, until finally, the process stabilized. Panic set in as the system delayed its verdict. But then, the notification chimed. Absolute success. He had ascended beyond a mere ghost. He was now the holder of the phantom-level ghost job, a class unheard of in history. Though the terminology was alien, he assumed its power rivaled, if not surpassed, the standard legendary class. Evolution complete. He refocused on the carnage at hand. Killing the Archmage had served a dual purpose all along. His strength had skyrocketed. Now, he initiated Lich Creation, a forbidden art usually reserved for level 70 necromancers, or a 7th circle mage. The standard creation failed, but the system intervened, triggering a special undead creation instead. Dark energy swirled and condensed. From the abyss, a humanoid figure manifested before Rayon's eyes. The system demanded a name for this monstrosity. Suddenly, a violent explosion rocked the compound, alerting the guards outside. Time was up. Still wearing Sans' skin, our hero emerged from the smoke, carrying Rayon's limp body. He spun a web of lies instantly, screaming that the Archmage was a traitor who had orchestrated this disaster. He claimed to have sealed the traitor with an artifact, and roared at the guards to act fast before the binding spell shattered. His escape route was set. Mounting a steed, he barked orders to restrain the corpse while he rode for reinforcements. He promised them riches and glory if they held the line. With that, our protagonist galloped into the distance, and that was the final glimpse they would ever have of the young master. Meanwhile, at the Parton estate, trembling servants delivered the catastrophic news to Farius, the 7th circle mage of the Parton clan. The Archmage was missing. Farius's eyes narrowed as he asked if this secret had leaked to any other soul. The servant confirmed his silence. In a flash, Farius ordered his death. Loose ends had to be severed immediately. Sansa's safety was a concern, but if the world learned the Parton family kidnapped a sermon child, it would mean total war. Suddenly, screams erupted from the courtyard. A reaper from the sermon family had descended, slaughtering the guards. Farius roared for the intruder to leave, but the man stood firm, bathed in blood, demanding the truth about the young master. The dust from the explosion had barely settled, yet Rion's week-long disappearance loomed like a dark cloud. Every shadow and whisper pointed toward the Parton family's camp, accusing them of the young master's abduction. Desperate to deflect the blame, their leader raged. He claimed total ignorance, shouting that their own heir, Sans Parton, was also missing. He suggested a joint search, but the visitor spat on his words. Silence was the only order given. Truno stood nearby, sweat trickling down his back, praying to the gods for peace. Sina stepped forward, her aura freezing the room. She branded him a traitor. Yet, because Raion had once defended him, his life was spared, for now. Truno then whispered a crucial detail. Raion had promised to leave a sign, a secret code only the sermon bloodline could decipher. Sina's eyes narrowed, scanning the chaos until she found it. A grisly sight. Sans Parton's corpse swayed from a tree, bearing a chilling confession. "I am a kidnapper, please punish me." But hidden from prying eyes, Sina found a letter. Raion revealed the terrifying truth of his strategy within. He planned to possess Sansa's body and rot the Parton family from the inside, but the risk of exposure was too great. If he returned as Raion now, total war would engulf the families. The sermons were too weak, so he chose the path of shadows. Sina let the flames consume his words and ordered Truno home. Meanwhile, a boy named Raion sprinted through town, summoned by destiny. The guild leader demanded his presence. But make no mistake, this boy was actually our hero in disguise. Later, Lady Sina would know him as the Dragon of Drea. Fast forward 3 months, to the bustling capital of Painstroy. The streets were alive with whispers, analyzing the bitter feud between House Parton and House Sermon. It all began with a traitor from House Parton daring to kidnap the sole heir of the Sermon bloodline. In the end, House Sermon swallowed their pride and accepted blood money. No culprit found, no son returned. The public scoffed at their weakness. Once a legendary household of assassins, their reputation now lay in ruins. Meanwhile, at the Martin Assassin Guild, branch manager Sapphire watched the chaos from her throne. She noted with a smirk that the Sermon family seemed more desperate for gold than for their lost heir. It appeared their greed outweighed their blood ties, a truly pathetic display for nobles. Duns guzzled his ale, bringing up the brutal execution of manager Truno. Sapphire explained cold-heartedly. Truno aided the traitor, so Alejandro removed his head without hesitation. Even Sapphire shivered. Alejandro was a rare swordmaster of the continent, yet he sullied his blade with executions. Just then, Raion entered the room. He nodded to his Uncle Duns and stood before Sapphire's desk with calm confidence. She handed him a recommendation letter, the key to official guild membership, pending one final test. Sliding the paper across the wood, she scoffed. For a monster like him, the test was a mere formality. It was terrifying. He mastered the final stage in 2 months, a feat unseen for hundreds of years. He tried to play the humble student, but Sapphire saw right through his mask. Her mind drifted back 2 months. Raion had appeared at their obscure guild out of nowhere. He had slammed a mountain of gold onto the table, demanding a specific assassination contract. Money talks in this business. Since the payment was astronomical, she treated him like royalty. But it wasn't just greed. Her assassin's instinct screamed that this boy was unique. He looked like a beggar, yet carried a king's ransom and walked with a warrior's grace. The request was insanity itself. Raion had paid the guild to assassinate himself. Back in the present, Raion took the letter and left. Moments later, a masked figure named Carl emerged from the shadows. He questioned her judgment. Did she accept this Raion just on a gut feeling? Sapphire retorted sharply. Raion finished a decade of training in 30 days. He was a prodigy. She turned the tables, asking for his report. Carl confirmed Raion was raised by a mysterious, vanished master. Allegedly, Raion joined the guild only to track down his teacher. A convenient story, but it checked out. Because of his bizarre request, they had vetted him mercilessly before letting him in. Carl had even inspected his alleged home. The wear and tear were authentic. The lie was perfect. Yet, a nagging fear clawed at Sapphire. Could Raion actually be Raion Sermon, the missing heir? The timing was too coincidental. But Carl laughed it off, assuring her the odds were next to zero. Raion was infamous as the family trash, 0 mana, no sword talent, and pathetic stamina. It seemed impossible that he and the mysterious expert were the same person. He tried to continue, but Sapphire silenced him instantly. She wasn't paying him to play detective. Instead, she commanded him to hunt down Rayon's elusive master. Little did they know, Raion heard every word from the shadows of his room, his necromancer arts acting as his ears. Sapphire's intuition was terrifyingly sharp. He summoned his status window. The levels lost during his class change had returned. Pouring mana into body domination was the ultimate gamble, and he had won. It didn't just reshape his flesh, it cloaked his very essence. His mana was now invisible, capable of fooling even the sensory skills of a second-grade assassin. That was when Cornic materialized, an undead girl of immense potential. She was a growing type undead. Her phantom abilities stunned him. They were hidden variables not listed in any description. A hidden quest had triggered deep within the circuit. It demanded the discovery of secret conditions. The completion notification flashed the moment Archie fell. The fusion of the Hand of Death and the Phantom Circuit, along with the quest, had birthed her. For now, she was just a mana-devouring parasite, draining him dry. But he saw her true value. True power isn't about today's strength, it's about investing in the calamities of tomorrow. Dunce's arrival shattered his focus. Raion quickly lied, claiming he was just singing about his dream of reaching the guild's inner circle, and one day, ruling as a branch manager. Dunce didn't doubt him. With Raion's monstrous growth rate, it wasn't just a dream, it was destiny. The instructor laid out the brutal reality. 3 final candidates. Only one could ascend to become an official member. A true 5th-grade assassin. Paula, Rin, and Raion stood ready for judgment. The test began. Dunce demanded intel on the target. Rin stepped up, revealing details about Alok, a 47-year-old merchant, protected by bronze warriors and a silver-grade mage. Rumor had it, he visited a young concubine every single night. During those hours, the guards supposedly left him alone. Dunce nodded, impressed by her investigation. Rin had even mapped an infiltration route. But Dunce posed a lethal question. Was there a guarantee the target would actually walk into the trap? Rin froze. She hadn't calculated that variable. This was why the Martong Guild demanded absolute precision. Dunce's gaze then shifted to Raion. What did you find? Raion's answer sent shockwaves through the room. Why should he share? Cooperation was useless. Only one could survive this test. Sharing intel was tantamount to suicide. He refused to give them a single scrap. The other contestants boiled with irritation. They realized they had spoken too soon. In the end, they were rivals, not friends. Raion cut them down cold. We are not colleagues, Dunce grinned. Raion had finally grasped the true heart of an assassin. People are tools to be used and discarded. That is the way of the shadows. He asked for final objections. Silence filled the room. Dunce fired the starting signal, and the hunt was on. It reminded Dunce of Raion's own impossible trial. 3 days to survive in Parton. The condition? Simply register him as a special grade trainee at the branch. The veteran assassins had laughed, expecting to catch the rookie in 10 minutes. Their arrogance cost them. 3 days passed, and not a single soul could find him. They were forced to respect Raionn's genius traps. Having proved his worth, Sapphire herself had taken him under her wing. Back in the present, Raion knew this wasn't a game. Becoming a formal assassin was a path paved in blood. The difficulty was set to hell mode. Tonight, he wouldn't just pass a test, he would carve his name into history. Paula moved first, ghosting past the magical alarms and mechanical traps. But he walked straight into a nightmare, hidden mercenaries. Rin watched from the shadows, thanking the fool for the distraction. Because of his failure, her path was clear. But the target was no amateur. Alok was a survivor of 1,000 death threats. He wasn't where they expected. He was cowering in his main wife's chambers, enduring her screaming rage for bringing danger to her doorstep. He pleaded his innocence, citing the room's impregnable defenses. From the rooftop, Rin heard it all. Stealth was no longer an option. She prepared to slaughter the 5 guards and force her way in. Meanwhile, tragedy unfolds in the master bedroom. Alok's wife corners him, a gleaming blade trembling in her hand. Betrayed by his affairs and the theft of their family fortune, she has reached her breaking point. He stammers, desperately claiming the business funds were insufficient, but she sees through the lies. She knows he squandered their legacy on a gift for his mistress. In a fit of blind rage, steel pierces his heart. She collapses, tears flooding her eyes as the deed is done. Horror dawns as the reality of her crime sets in. Watching from the shadows, Rin is paralyzed with confusion as the target falls. Is this a victory or a disaster? Her mind races to Raion, realizing she hasn't seen even a shadow of him all night. With heavy steps, she reports the anomaly. The mission failed because the target was slain by his own wife, not an assassin. But shock freezes her veins when she sees Raion already lounging at the base. Did he even step foot on the battlefield? Paula arrives breathless, having barely survived the chaos when the mercenaries turned on each other like rabid dogs. But Dunce drops a bombshell. The mission is a success. Raion passed. The duo stands agape as the truth is unveiled. Raion controlled the wife like a puppet. He used her hands to execute the target with terrifying precision. Dunce demands answers, and Raion sighs, looking bored by the interrogation. The answer was simple, he says coldly. The solution lay in the toxic space between the husband and wife. The rivals suspect foul play. Did the branch manager feed him secret intel on the target? Raion scoffs at the thought. Gathering dirt on a famous merchant? That's child's play. According to Rin's basic intel, Alok was just a liquor tycoon with a wandering eye. But while the others scrambled for crumbs of information, Raion had already solved the entire puzzle. He was moving pieces on the board before the game even started. Paula is baffled. How could he investigate before knowing the assignment? Raion reveals the terrifying extent of his diligence. He didn't just investigate one man. He profiled every potential target in the entire city. Anyone with bad rumors or a price on their head was already in his database. He spent 2 months infiltrating the merchant circles, becoming one with the shadows and absorbing every rumor. He was ready for any name to drop. Total preparation. He had a blueprint for every possible assassination. No matter who the target was, he was ready. It was like memorizing the entire textbook for a single pop quiz. During his deep dive, he found the weak link. Kelly, the scorned wife holding a deep grudge against Alok. He whispered in her ear. He found her broken and mistreated, offering a devil's solution. Secretly commissioned the assassination guild herself. As Alok continued his debauchery and ignored her, he kept running the business into the ground. He burned through her family's wealth. Kelly hated him enough to kill, but her heart was weak. She didn't actually want him dead. So Raion spun a web of lies. Hire extra mercenaries, he told her. Strengthen the security. Make him fear for his life. And he'll run back to your arms for safety. In the final hour, Raion planted the script in her mind. He told her to frame the assassination chaos as a plot by the mistress. He promised her that her husband would wake up and return to her. Drunk on hope and wine, she accepted the devil's deal. And Raion admits, with a smirk, it would have been a happy ending for her, if I had stopped there. But right before the curtain rose, he twisted the knife. He leaked the final truth. Alok had spent every last cent. He stole her family's legacy for the other woman. The test was rigged from the start, and Raion tilted the board in his favor. He smartly diverted the chaos to serve his blade. Dunce is still reeling. How does a civilian woman summon the will to kill? Alchemy, Raion declares. The delivered wine was laced with a special potion he brewed himself. To avoid messy collateral damage, he spiked the mercenaries' water supply as well. Timing was everything. The drug clouds, judgment and amplifies rage into a frenzy. Paula gasps the mercenaries fighting each other wasn't bad luck. It was chemistry. Everything moved to Raion's rhythm. The leaked secret combined with the rage-inducing drug. turned Kelly into a vessel of pure vengeance. Dunce can only offer a stunned congratulation on a flawless clear. But Raion isn't done. He informs Dunce that he's collecting the commission fee and a hush money bonus from Kelly. Kelly is now a murderer. But to the world, assassins infiltrated the home. Only the guild knows her secret. She will pay a fortune to bury the truth that she, not an assassin, struck the final blow. She committed the crime, and now she pays the price. The room falls silent, terrified by his professional cruelty. His work is sharp, efficient, and utterly ruthless. Dunce dismisses the failures but blocks Raion's path. "You made a monster," he accuses. "That woman must live with the crushing guilt of killing her husband for the rest of her life." Raion had missed a crucial detail about their creed. The guild forges assassins, not monsters. As Raion calmly breaks the silence, he admits he saw her as nothing more than a fragile civilian. Until the horrifying truth surfaced, Kelly was a predator who slaughtered every mistress. Her husband wasn't innocent either. He was a scumbag who destroyed countless lives through illicit drugs. He ran predatory loans and gambling dens in the shadows. Yet Kelly masked her blood-soaked hands using her family's immense influence. Her husband grew weary of her, yet his lust was a bottomless pit, taking in more women despite knowing the grim fate that awaited them. He knew every single one would eventually face a gruesome end, while the families of the missing mistresses continued their desperate, hopeless search. But the iron grip of Kelly's noble power buried her crimes deep. These are the dark secrets that never surface in a standard investigation. Raion reminds him this was merely an assassination request for a test case, and even if she hesitated at her husband's death, the guild operates on a blood contract. They only claim the full bounty when the target's heart stops beating. Then Raion challenges the very notion of morality, asking if a client's tears or circumstances hold any weight in the business of death. Their blades move only for gold. He points out that Kelly never explicitly forbade them from killing her husband. She simply didn't want to stain her own hands, so she used the guild as her weapon, and the request was executed according to their own ruthless code. Even if she is forced to live out her remaining days haunted by the guilt of her husband's murder, that burden is hers alone to bear. Dunn chimes in, declaring that a conscience is a useless shackle for an assassin. Raion delivers the final verdict. If they wish to hold on to their humanity, they must cultivate absolute power. Only with overwhelming strength can they uproot the system. Searching for morality in a contract killing is a fool's errand. Nothing changes by weeping over spills. He turns his back and walks away, leaving Sapphire to congratulate our boy on surviving the trial. She announces his ascension. He is now formally inducted as a 5th-grade assassin, and the moment the words leave her lips, his level skyrockets. The system window flashes before his eyes. He has earned the respect of Philip and Paula, and secured Dunn's high expectations. Sapphire informs him the real work begins now. He can accept official guild commissions, and even vie for a promotion if he proves his worth. She assumes he will take time to recover, but he cuts her off mid-sentence, reciting the promotion criteria with chilling precision. He immediately demands the numbers, asking exactly how much gold the Alok request generated without a hint of hesitation. Sapphire feels the weight of his intensity and caves, revealing the breakdown. 10 gold in advance, 10 gold upon completion, and a bonus of 10 gold from Kelly to buy their silence regarding the murder. A smirk plays on his lips. Even if it was a test, he was the blade that executed the contract and secured the bonus revenue. Since the threshold for promotion is 30 gold from a single request, he has already shattered the requirement. The system instantly presents the option. Apply for promotion to 4th-grade assassin? Sapphire warns him against flying too close to the sun. She cautions him not to underestimate the hierarchy. The guild is an ancient beast with its own ironclad laws and politics. In their world, you are only considered a true threat starting from the 4th grade. She is visibly annoyed by his brazen attitude. His confidence feels like a slap to the veterans. But he disregards her warning and loudly declares he will not withdraw his application. She begins to lose her temper, shouting at him. But Dunn, who watched the entire test from the shadows, intervenes. The proctor affirms that Raion is more than qualified to face the 4th-grade trial, silencing Sapphire's protests. It wasn't arrogance, it was raw talent he displayed in the test, pure, unadulterated physical dominance without relying on complex schemes. He utilized the ultimate weapon, the assassin's own body, and won the game of death with brilliant, instinctive combat strategies. Dunn sees an opportunity. They can use this test to measure Raion's true limits, or perhaps teach him a painful lesson. Sapphire recalls the tag game, realizing he countered her trap techniques with terrifying efficiency. She finally relents, agreeing to the promotion test, but her expression turns grim. She warns him that for this trial, assassins must put their very lives on the line. Yet he accepts the challenge without blinking. Later that night, under the dim tavern lights, Dunn informs him that the bureaucratic gears turn slowly. The earliest the deathmatch can be arranged is in a month or two. Dunn offers to train him personally, but Raion politely declines. He craves rest, not more grueling drills. He informs them he will vanish from the guild's radar for a short while. Once he is an official member, he has the freedom to roam. He vows to return before the test date and will check in at the Martin branch. He needs to keep tabs on the schedule. Satisfied, they continue to drink the night away until the alcohol dulls the edge of their dangerous lives. Raion knows deep down that peace is a luxury he can no longer afford. Once he ascends to the 4th rank, the requests will be relentless. Since his future targets will be powerful branch leaders, he likely won't even have time to close his eyes for a nap. Time is running out, and he must vanish before the net closes in, escaping toward the dark zone, the realm where death walks. Fate, however, intervenes when a noble carriage approaches, its arrogant escort spotting our boy and immediately demanding his identity. Raion collapses, feigning a crippled leg and pleading that he cannot take another step, begging the highborn for a ride to the nearest village. It is a gamble between life and death, and the lead knight looks down with cold disdain, sneering at the beggar. He claims he would have taken the boy's head if they weren't in a rush, but Rion's sharp instincts tell him otherwise. There is no urgency here. Raion desperately begs for mercy, and suddenly, a gentle voice commands from within the carriage, instructing the knight, Kenil. She orders him to bring the child inside, but Kenil's pride won't allow a peasant in the carriage, so he roughly hoists Raion onto his own horse. As they ride, Kenil interrogates him, and while our protagonist plays the innocent role, the knight reminds him that his life is a gift. He claims it is only by the grace of the young lady that Raion draws breath. But Raion knows this encounter was never about luck. It was a calculated move on the chessboard of fate. The girl is Senton Rose, a direct bloodline descendant of the Rose family. She bears the family crest, and for this meeting to happen, Raion had already swept the path ahead, eliminating every hidden danger in silence. He had gathered intelligence that the Rose procession would travel this exact route, forcing him to lay low in the outer territories of Feinstroy. But the once mighty Rose family has crumbled overnight, and the young heiress has been forced into a humiliating exile. Raion analyzes the group and realizes these are merely minor nobles from the borderlands. The escorts aren't even true knights of the realm. They are nothing more than private soldiers given a fancy title, mere amateurs protecting a shattered legacy. According to his investigation, the tragic fall of the Rose dynasty is inextricably linked to the powerful Sermon family. One of the soldiers voices his confusion, asking why the Sermon clan is mixed up in their misfortune, and another whispers a dark rumor. He claims the cunning Sermon family assassinated the head of the Rose clan to bury evidence of their corruption, leaving Raion feigning shock. As they take a brief respite, Raion pieces together the puzzle. The Rose family's destruction was born from the fires of war. It was a conflict between the Sermon family of the Darren kingdom and the Parton family of the Feinstroy kingdom. The eldest son of the Rose family had crossed borders, pledging his sword to the rival nation as a knight of the Sermon household. That was where the blood ties began. But tragedy struck during a mission in the Dark Zone, when he was slaughtered by a beast. To save face, the Sermon family honored the fallen son with massive financial aid. But this act of charity was a poisoned chalice. A rival clan, seething with jealousy, used this connection to paint a target on the Rose family's back, fueling the fires of suspicion. They used the political chaos as a weapon, leading to the brutal assassination of the Rose family patriarch as rumors spread like plague. Whispers claimed the Rose family were spies working in the shadows for Sermon, and that their allies silenced them to hide the truth. The Rose survivors claimed it was actually the Parton family who dealt the killing blow, but their cries for justice went unheard. In the world of power, truth matters little. Parton was rising like a sun, and the Rose family was fading into twilight. Now, with their leader dead and their influence shattered, the remnants of the Rose clan march toward exile in Darren. The only ones who know the grim reality are the loyal few who refuse to abandon Senton Rose, even as she sleeps unknowingly in her tent. Outside, the amateur knights are scattered without discipline, some guarding, others gossiping by the fire as Kenil runs his mouth. He rants about how the Parton and O'Neill families are the true villains, painting the Sermon family as misunderstood saints. The guards cheer at his patriotic speech, while Raion sits silently in the shadows, slurping his soup and listening to every word. One guard glances at the boy, assuming the complex political intrigue is boring the poor child to tears. But Raion breaks his silence with a sharp observation, questioning the wisdom of discussing state secrets so freely. To speak of such dangerous matters in front of a stranger, while on a covert exile mission, is the height of stupidity. The guards laugh it off, unaware that their lack of caution is putting Lady Rose in the crosshairs of death. Raion realizes that Kenil and these rookie knights have no concept of the darkness they are walking into, especially regarding the O'Neill family. Raion knows the reputation of the O'Neill patriarch well, a notorious womanizer with a bounty on his head so high it tempts the devil. Raion himself had rejected assassination contracts on the man simply because the risk was not worth the payout. Despite his debauched lifestyle, the man is paranoid about security. If such a monster is hunting Lady Rose, open camping is suicide. Suddenly, Rayon's senses scream. He detects movement in the abyss of the forest, a predator lurking in the trees behind them. A tail has already locked onto them, but rather than revealing his strength, Raion slips away into the darkness like a phantom. He begins to dig traps with lethal precision, preparing a nasty surprise to slow down the hunters tracking their scent. By the time he returns to the fire, covered in grime, the guards look at him with confusion, clueless that their lives were just saved. With a web of deadly traps laid to slow the hunt, and armed with the intel he had extracted earlier, he returned to the solitude of his tent. His plan was simple and cold: rest now, recover his stamina, and vanish into the mist at the first light of dawn. As the sun rose, the caravan moved out, eventually arriving at the gloomy outskirts of their destination, Dasom village. Knight Canil cast a suspicious glance at Raion, openly questioning how a mere child intended to survive alone in such a dangerous place. Standing on the precipice of the notorious Dark Zone, Raion spun a casual lie without blinking. He claimed to be a merchant dealing in monster byproducts, a dangerous trade for one so young. He prepared to fade into the shadows, but the knight intercepted him, pressing a vial into his hand. A high-grade healing potion, a parting gift from Lady Rose herself. Raion froze, genuinely surprised by this unexpected act of kindness. As the caravan disappeared into the distance, leaving him in silence, he stared at the potion. Without hesitation, he downed the precious liquid in a single gulp. But the moment the liquid touched his lips, the earth began to tremble. A cavalcade of riders thundered past him, like a storm. Rayon's eyes narrowed. He recognized them instantly. Mercenaries, aura users, battle mages, and leading this pack of wolves was none other than Garuta Ani, the ruthless second son of the Ani clan. They tore past him, not even deigning to look at a seemingly insignificant commoner. Even Raion had to admit his shock. Despite the labyrinth of traps he had laid to stall them, their tracking speed was terrifyingly efficient. Then, his gaze fell upon the empty vial in his hand. Upon closer inspection, the craftsmanship screamed luxury. It made him pause. Why would Lady Rose waste such a treasure on a stranger like him? She was living the life of a hunted fugitive, her family's downfall all but guaranteed. Raion calculated the odds Garuda would catch her before nightfall. It should have been irrelevant to him. The affairs of nobles were not his concern. Yet, the lingering taste of that expensive potion weighed heavy on his conscience. He couldn't shake the debt. With a resigned sigh, he realized he owed them a return on their investment. Mana flared as he opened his magic circuits, summoning the entity Kornak from the void. Surging with power, he issued her first command: the hunt was on. Meanwhile, Knight Canel's ears twitched. A sound carried on the wind sent his instincts screaming into high alert. He roared for the caravan to double their speed, signaling for the lady to retreat to the rear guard. Confusion rippled through the group, but Canel's intensity brooked no argument. He revealed the grim truth. Mana users were closing in on their position. With the border so close, this was their final sprint. He established a desperate contingency. If the enemy engaged, the vanguard was to abandon the fight and smuggle the lady to safety at all costs. Seizing his resolve, Canel wheeled his horse around and charged alone toward the oncoming storm. He prepared to buy time with his life, fully aware that the Ani clan's elites were monsters far beyond his league. The Ani pursuit party crested the mountain pass, sliding to a halt. They were baffled to find a single, solitary knight standing in defiance against an army. Canel held his ground, his voice booming as he warned them to turn back or face his blade. But his bravado faltered when the leader pulled back his hood. It was Garuta Ani himself. Ignoring his subordinates' warnings about revealing his identity, Garuda smiled cruelly. He didn't care. His orders were absolute: slaughter them all. Only the saintess was to be taken alive. With a wave of his hand, the hunt began. He ordered his men to capture the girl before she could reach the sanctuary of the border. As mercenaries swarmed like locusts, Canel swung his sword in defiance, only to be blasted backward by a devastating spell from the enemy mage. He crashed into the dirt, smoke rising from his armor. Broken and bleeding, Canel tried to rise, but despair hit harder than the spell. Garuta summoned his champion. It was Ciso, the former captain of the Rose Knights, a man who had sold his honor for Ani gold. Ciso moved with terrifying speed, disarming Canel in a few effortless strikes. Standing over his former subordinate, he sneered, offering Canel a chance to live if he abandoned the Rose family. But Canel spat blood in response. He would choose death over betrayal. "Kill him," Garuta commanded. Ciso raised his blade for the execution. But just as the steel began its descent, a force slammed into Ciso's back with the impact of a cannonball. Emerald flames erupted from nowhere. Kornak had arrived. Before Ciso could even process the pain, A barrage of green fire bombarded him, turning the traitor into ash in a heartbeat. Garuta only survived because his battle mage cast a barrier at the last split second. Meanwhile, chaos had engulfed the main party near the border. The carriage lay in splinters, utterly destroyed. Only 2 knights remained standing, fighting desperately to protect Lady Rose. They gave everything they had, while the Ani mercenaries cackled, mocking their feeble resistance. As hope faded, Lady Rose stepped through the wreckage. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with resolve. Ordering her men to stand down, she pressed a dagger against her own porcelain throat. She faced the mercenaries with the dignity of a queen. "Take me if you wish," she declared, her voice trembling but firm. "But spare my men, or I will end my life right here." She knew they needed her alive. It was her only leverage. However, the mercenary leader simply laughed in her face. "You haven't reached Darren yet, little girl," he sneered. "Here, you are no noble. You are nothing." In a blur of motion, he vanished and reappeared behind her, snatching the dagger from her grasp before she could blink. "Let me teach you the terror of facing a mana user," he whispered. Seeing their lady in peril, the last Rose Knight screamed and charged forward. But before the thug can even twitch, wham, Raion materializes out of thin air, delivering a glorious high-velocity boot right to the mercenary's ugly mug. The remaining goon is flabbergasted, but his jaw really hits the floor when Raion drops his intro. "I'm a lethal assassin from Marton," he declares. "And yes, I was prepaid with delicious soup and a single potion." Talk about a budget killer. Seeing a glimmer of hope, Lady Rose does the math at light speed. 30 gold coins! Just handle the trash for me." Raion scoffs at the offer. 30? Honey, that barely covers the guy I just kicked. Inflation is a beast, you know? You've still got the second son of House Ani, a knight commander, and a mage breathing down your neck. He knows exactly what his services are worth. Lady Rose realizes the clock is ticking. If she pinches pennies now, her exile mission fails, and House Rose is history. Desperation takes the wheel. She screams, "Fine, take it all, just save us." And Raion flashes a grin that screams times jackpot asterisk. Deal sealed. Raion launches into the sky like a rocket, charging at the mercenary who is currently questioning his life choices. Is this soup-loving weirdo a real assassin? The thug wonders. Raion answers by loading up a devastating strike. Slash. One swing is all it takes. The first mercenary hits the dirt, proving Raion isn't just a tough negotiator, he's a cold-blooded professional. First blood to Raion. He stands there basking in his moment of glory, the price of victory being times everything, asterisk. But wait, plot twist. The downed goon rises like a bad horror movie extra, cackling like a maniac. You think that tickle hurt? Before Raion can even turn around, the first guy he dropped swings his sword in a blind rage. Raion sidesteps it with a bored expression. Cute try, he thinks, but realizes these guys are tenacious cockroaches. Realizing they're up against a Marton monster, the duo syncs up. They launch a coordinated assault. They switch positions with practiced swordplay, trying to corner him from both sides at once. Raion yawns. Body control. Activate. Whoosh. He's everywhere at once. He's behind them, in front of them, the duo is spinning in circles like confused puppies. "It's an illusion," they scream, failing to land a single scratch on the elusive assassin. They decide to wait for the perfect opening to counter. Spoiler alert. That opening isn't coming. Raion flickers into view right in their faces. Too slow. He reveals he's already slapped them with physical warnings and nasty curses. Before their brains can process the doom, splat. Rayon's energy rips them apart from the inside out. It's a literal blood confetti party. As the morning sun politely ignores the carnage, the survivors scramble to patch up the wounded and fix the carriage. Just then, Sir Kennel gallops in. His eyes dart around wildly. "Is everyone safe?" Lady Rose dissolves into tears of relief, while Raion leans back in the shadows, thinking, "You're welcome, by the way." The guards are in awe. "Commander, did you solo the pursuers?" Kennel shakes his head. "Nope, some mystery mage popped up and carried the team. Whoever it was, they helped me capture Garuda and crush that traitorous knight." Speak of the devil. Cornac the mage arrives on cue, responding to Raion's signal. Thud. She drops the traitor Garuda like a sack of potatoes. Kennel blinks, looking at Raion. "Wait, isn't that the soup kid I met earlier?" Lady Rose whispers, "He's a Marton assassin." The gears turn in Kennel's head. Times explains how the enemies got melted so fast. While Kennel was fighting for his life, this kid was cleaning house. Garuda, sweating bullets, tries to wheel and deal. "I'll pay triple." Assassins love gold, right? Let me go. He assumes money talks louder than morals. But to everyone's shock, Raion looks annoyed. You talk too much. Asterisk asterisk snap. Asterisk asterisk. He uses a spell to slice Garuta in half. He turns to Lady Rose with a chilling smile. See, this is exactly what happens to people who skip out on the bill. Message received, loud and clear. Terrified but grateful, the lady nods. Raion approaches for his reward but says, keep the cash for now. I know you're broke. We'll do a verbal contract, secret. You owe me big time later. A long-term investment. Now, let's keep moving. Don't worry about the mess. The guild loves cleaning up corpses. Very reassuring, Raion. Raion turns to leave, his job done. But Sir Kennel, totally impressed by the kid's swagger, calls out to him. Raion gives him a cheeky wink, snaps his fingers, and asterisk asterisk poof asterisk asterisk vanishes into thin air before their eyes. The guards are stunned, but Kennel is reeling. That wasn't just a normal assassin technique. That's summon. It spoke clear human language. That's high-level dark arts. It took down a mage and a traitor instantly. Kennel shudders with a realization. A kid who commands death like that? He might be the disciple of the legendary necromancer Veda.